All right. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. This is Corey Empowers, and we are presenting a special edition of Mental Wealth Wednesday. This is the election edition, and we are looking at the landscape, checking out the scene, trying to understand what is going on throughout our country, how people are feeling, and how this current climate impacts our mental health and wealth. We've heard a lot about Black men during this election season, and there are different perspectives, whether there are real reasons as to why they're not voting or not supporting VP Harris or supporting the other candidate. And we're just going to have an open, honest conversation today to understand how all of these things intersect. What are the perspectives that these gentlemen have with us tonight? And hopefully you can join us by putting in your chats, your comments, and questions, and we'll try our best to answer those as well. So without any further ado, once again, welcome to Corey Empowers Presents Mental Wealth Wednesday, Special Election Edition. And we have three great men here today who are going to tell you about themselves and share a little bit so we can get an understanding of who all is represented here today and why they believe that mental health and wealth is important, and just get some of their comments and feedback about this current election season. So I'll start off with Devante. Good evening. Thank you so much. This is a returning guest, Devante. Thank you so much for coming on again. Please tell us your full name and a little bit about your company and why you are on this call tonight.
Good evening, everyone. So first and foremost, Corey, thank you so much for having me on. It's truly an honor. So my name is Devontae Dillon. I'm the current CEO and co-founder of Diligence Training. So Diligence Training is the #1 health and wellness center in the state of Connecticut. So we have a huge emphasis on just like holistic health. So as Corey is talking about, we have an emphasis on mental health, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being, from adolescence all the way to, like an older community. And then I also have a nonprofit arm by the name of DT Cares. And our mantra is to be who you needed growing up. So it's like we want to make sure that we have an impact within our community, exposing them to resources, exposing them to like different informations, just that way that they can be, our future leaders in the upcoming generation. So, I'm excited about this conversation. I think it's needed, especially, in the Black and brown community. Mental health is something that has to be acknowledged, and people need to understand that vulnerability is a strength. So it's like when we can gather together, we'll only get stronger.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And now we'll have State Representative and Minority Leader, Gerald. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. If I had to rate myself in terms of weather, it is sunshine with a bit of clouds, as I like to say. But my name is Dontavius Gerald. For those who are watching, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Corey, for having me with these amazing panelists. I just so happen to be a state representative out of Ohio, representing the beautiful House District 1, which is right here in our capital, Columbus, Ohio. And I also serve as the assistant minority leader. But that's one piece of my life. I'm a son, I'm a brother of 8 siblings. I'm someone who loves to watch movies at times, particularly horror films, because it's all the way Halloween. But ultimately, I'm someone who's driven by advancing and transforming public policy. And part of that's because of my own lived experience growing up in an environment where I saw disinvestment in real time. And I knew that, when family members working 2 jobs to make ends meet, when you have families that are navigating, police brutality, families navigating wealth and inequality, understanding that the healthcare system is not necessarily there to meet them where they are, right? Mental wealth or mental health is going to be impacted. And so as a kid, I saw that in real time. And as an adult, I worked really hard to try to advance bold policy to really change the material conditions of people right here in Ohio. But hopefully it represents what we need to do across our nation. So happy to be on. Thank you again, Corey, for having me. And let's have the talk.
Well, thank you very much. And last but not least, Trent.
Save the Canadian for last. All right, I see you, Corey. All right, Corey, thank you so much for having me. My name is Trent Out Loud. I am an entrepreneur who was out here in Canada. I started selling long tees and do-rags out the trunk of my car and turned that into a $100 million national brand across Canada. In 2018, I lost $2.2 million on a downturn in the industry. And that is where I found mental health. I've always kind of been interested in it a little, but being at one of the lowest points in my life, I was like, listen, I need help to navigate through this. Found therapy, was diagnosed with having some manic episodes and being bipolar, chose to deal with it through talk therapy. I attribute therapy and mental health to not only saving my business, but potentially saving my life. So ever since then, I've been an advocate and I've wanted to just talk about it, especially to young Black and brown men, because I don't feel like it's talked about enough. I wrote 2 books about it. One, How Sneakers Saved My Life. The other, How Sneakers Ruined My Life. This is about building my business. And this book was around losing money and dealing with the downturns. I don't think a lot of businessmen talk enough about the downturns. I learned more about myself in business during the downturn. So that is why I do what I do. And that's why I hear him on this panel. During COVID, I made back all the money that I lost, then some. I closed my business and started my YouTube channel and podcaster. I have 100,000 followers on YouTube. And now I'm just out here doing entertainment news daily. I'm on the radio, and just when I can, love being on panels like this, spreading the good word about mental health.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You all have very large platforms, and you have an opportunity to make a significant impact with youth and just the larger community. So how do you use your platform in the best way? What have you found to be the most beneficial way to use your platform, and how do you use your platform? And we'll start with you, Trent.
There you go. Thank you. Making up for it. Okay, I see you. Corey and I met at Charlemagne the God and Dr. Alfie's Mental Wealth Expo. I think 2 years in a row now we've been there, right? And they asked me the same question on stage, and I say the same thing all the time, is that we have to start trying to implement mental health in a fun way, especially to get to younger people, right? And Charlemagne agreed with me, and they still do a great job. I feel everybody does a good job, but we have to find a way to implement some fun, some hip hop, some fashion into it. So whenever I talk about it on my show or even in my book, I don't just have straight mental health. I was even interviewing DeMar DeRozan the other day, and I'm like, he wrote a book about mental health and all of this stuff, but we threw in basketball, we threw jokes, we threw some other things, and you massage it in there. It's like the sandwich theory, right? You have good news, bad news, and then good news, and that's how you deliver your product, right? So that's what I try to do. I try to mix in some fun and some serious, and hope to encourage mental health that way.
And how about you, Devontae?
So I couldn't agree more. So I think the biggest thing with these youth nowadays is like they need authenticity. So like they want to know your story. They don't want any fluff. They'll see right through it. And they have to be able to trust you. At the end of the day, it's like if they don't trust you, they're not gonna have any sort of like buy-in to want to listen to you. So it's like to what Trent said is like you have to be relatable. Like you can't just approach them with like, all right, we're talking about mental health. They want to know about your story. They want to know that you played sports. They want to know what you did back in your adolescent years, and then now you're gonna build them up to see your story, and now they're like, okay, this is the actual like, yes, this is a superstar in my eyes, but he's attainable, he's reachable, he's somebody that I can actually like relate to and connect to. So I think the biggest thing is like being able to relate to them, and understand that they're going through challenges that us as adults we've never experienced. Like a lot of these kids coming off of the pandemic, I work closely with 6th graders, so it's like during the pandemic they were in 1st, 2nd grade. And it's like they literally had to learn through technology. And like that's not, as we know, like that's not conducive to really like comprehending a subject. So it's like their social skills is not there. So it's like when they're kind of, not adhering to a program like in person, like I'm not going to give them detention per se. It's like we need to give them attention, like meet them where they are, meet them at their level, give them another chance. And like they all need love. They all need like, just that quality time. So like I think now more than ever, it's just like being able to relate to them and then being able to have it in like an engaging way.
And Representative Gerald?
Yeah, so I love what Trent and Devontae said. I think
Mhm.
from my vantage point as a legislator, there are kind of two dimensions of thought. One is the humanity portion of it, and then the other is how do we influence systems so that they are heard, seen, and affirmed. And so, at a humanity level, I think that it's very important that we are listening non-judgmentally to our youth, right, when they are saying how they're feeling, and it's not a sense of like we need to immediately begin to help them, whatever they're going through, but they just want someone to listen to. So many of our young people are dealing with things and they don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to navigate these feelings that they may have, right? And so having people that they trust, as Devontae said, that they're that's willing to listen to them intently, non-judgmentally, and then ask the right questions, right? Trent, you talk about being a talk show, right? Or YouTuber, podcaster. You know, Oprah says this all the time, like the right question opens the gate of the soul, right? And it's so critically important that we're able to understand, take in what they're saying, ask the right question, and help them lead themselves to a place where they can get the best help that they deserve. So that's the human level for me. And I do that when I'm out in the community talking to my constituents, talking to people who know me as a legislator, as an elected. And then I shifted to the policy space because some of the issues that are brought up from our young people, as was mentioned about COVID and navigating COVID, they require system level policy changes, right? I had a bill during COVID that would have given the opportunity for young people to take the same grade over because, we were essentially in Ohio graduating these young babies knowing that they really had a lot of disparity regarding the technology usage, their ability to focus in class, the ability to know how, to the lessons, and it never saw the light of day, right? But yet these babies are still going to these next grades and they're further and further behind, right? How does that impact their mental health? Well, it impacts it quite a bit,
Yeah.
right? If you know that you're in a class that you feel like you adequately are not prepared for. And so, how do we use policy as a vehicle to change the lived experiences of our youth so that they're able to navigate the healthcare system more effectively? That is my job as a legislator, and I'm thinking about that all the time.
Yeah. And that's very important for caregivers too, for the youth and for caregivers of adults. Many times it's a family member who has a job, full-time job or otherwise. And being able to navigate these systems is an important part of helping someone to tap into the resources that are available in the community. I just want to shift it to Trent because he had a very unique way of building his business. And it is a part of community engagement. Selling things out of the trunk of your car makes me think of Elin Harris, who became a best-selling author, selling books out of the trunk of his car, and even MC Hammer. Y'all remember him? MC Hammer used to sell his mixtapes out of the trunk of his car before he became a star. And I say that because I used to live in the Bay Area. Representative Gerald's, that was before in between my Ohio time, I was in California and also Texas. So that's my connection to the Bay Area. But it's important that we have the opportunity or take the opportunities to engage with the community, whether it's being an entrepreneur and for sure knowing about the resources in the community. So at the time, Trent, when you felt that you were needed assistance, resources, how of you being a part of in your community, how did that help you to know where to go or what to do?
So here in Canada, especially, we do not have resources or a large Black and brown community like the US. I think you guys are 13 or 14% Black. Here in Canada, we're 2.5%. So very difficult to find a Black therapist. But I didn't necessarily go out in the community to find that. Went to my family doctor who I've known for 20 years and spoke to him, and he recommended somebody to me. So I was just lucky to have that. But that's why I do what I do now, so that other kids that are not as fortunate as me, that doesn't have the access to doctors or these things that I have to be able to pay for this. And I always try to find, because a lot of people say, that's really good, I would like to go to therapy, but I don't have the money. I can't afford the $200 or the $250 it is an hour. So I'm always trying to find whatever communities and whether resources out there that will provide coaching or something, but it's definitely very lacking out here in Canada for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hearing that, Devontae, the lack of resources and maybe even having the gap in communication of where resources may be and where the youth may be. How do you meet youth where they are when they may not, or their families may not know about resources there in Connecticut, and for sure, specifically your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a part of that is like we found where we can provide value to our community. So we provide like mentorship programs through our nonprofit. So oftentimes the work that we do is pro bono because it's like that's just who we are at the root. So it's like we go into like the Boys and Girls Club, we go into like local high schools, local middle schools, and we just meet them where they are. So like at times the groups could be 5 kids, it could be 20 kids, and we've even done like assemblies where it's like a full blown auditorium of 300 kids. So it's like whenever there's a need within the community, through our resources, through our for-profit, they really just bridge the gap for us. So it's like, as Trent said, so like if these kids can't afford it, we'll meet them where they are with being in school. And then we've noticed that through that, it's like if the kid wants additional assistance service, that's when they'll reach out to us. They'll have their caregiver reach out to us. And then from there, like we really build out a full blown like curriculum for them. So it's like people think our health and wellness center, because it's considered a gym, yes. So people come in there for the physical, but we're very intentional about the experience that you're getting. So the moment that you come into our facility, you're getting an affirmation. So we're giving you a quote each and every time you come in there, and it's just something to empower you from your mental health standpoint. And then we have what's called a gratitude wall. So you're going to write something that you're grateful for. So now you're taking time to slow down. And then now it's like the type of music that we're playing. We're very intentional about that. So making you feel seen, heard, and you can be yourself. And then throughout the whole session, we're empowering you. So now it's like before you left, you thought, or now when you're leaving out, you thought you came here just for a workout and you feel good mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So it's like that's just like our system that we found has allowed us to work, which has allowed us to win the best facility in Connecticut for the past 4 years.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to take an opportunity to thank everyone for joining us. Today is a special edition of Mental Wealth Wednesday. It's a special election edition, and we're going to talk about some of the landscape that we see right now in terms of the different rhetoric, accusations against Black men, and how our panelists are navigating through all of this. And I especially want to touch on, because we are talking about mentorship, and you all have really talked about building people up in your communities, whether it's through legislation or the services that you provide or the different products that you may sell. So first, I want to acknowledge Anthony Darris, who feels that you all are spot on and that true mentorship is needed. And you have to show youth that they are not alone. So Darris, Anthony, we do appreciate you putting in the comments, and feel free, others who are watching and listening, to add your questions or comments in the chat. So at this time, gentlemen, let's think for a moment. You all have given some great information about ways that really sound empowering to those in your community who know about the work that you're doing and are recipients, beneficiaries of your communications, whether it's through your book, Trent, or Representative Gerald's through your legislation and community engagement, and Devontae through your organization on both sides, the for-profit and the nonprofit. Very empowering. Right now, it seems there's a lot going on that's not so empowering, that can really tear a person down. And I've heard a lot in the news about Black men not being involved in the political system, not voting, not representing, for example, VP Harris as a woman. And I would really love to give you the space and opportunity to share your thoughts on any of these news media that have put out this narrative and how that may have made you feel, or have you just shied away from being engaged in it because it can be detrimental to your overall mental health? So feel free, whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll go first. Let me just get it out the way. So, I think there's two distinctive realities here that we have to talk about. I don't know if anyone watched the BET Black Men Summit conversation that happened yesterday, but it was truly it was a masterclass of like a very dynamic conversation about how does Black men show up politically. The truth of the matter is, here in Ohio, when you think about issue one was the Reproductive Freedom Amendment that was passed overwhelmingly by Ohioans last November. It was Black men that carried it over the finish line. When you think about, and I'm a diehard Democrat, I'm just going to say it right now. But when you think about who votes after Black women at the highest propensity for Democrats, it's Black men. And so this conversation that we have, I feel at times is misplaced because you don't have that same conversation for white men. You don't have that same conversation with white women. You don't have that same conversation for Asian Americans, Latinos. We just don't. It is very truncated on this idea that Black men aren't showing up, and yet we are. So I think part of the problem is that we're not celebrating Black men. We're demonizing them in some cases. That's the first piece. But the truth is that there are men, Black men in particular, who have concerns. And I think it is our intention as electeds, as people in the political system, to hear those concerns and hear them with honesty, with openness, with empathy, and to do something about it. And so I am proud of the work that we've seen in the last few weeks in the response of those who criticized, that we can be better, we can do things right, and also pushing back on misinformation. And so, I guess what I'll tell you is, I think the best way to get people to become active is to empower their voices, to affirm their experiences, to build a environment where they feel their voice is leading to something of a system change in their lived condition. If we don't do that work on the back end after people are elected, that's when you begin to chip away at people feeling hurt, unheard, or unseen, or unwanted in the political apparatus. And so we have to restore confidence, as Darius just mentioned, and we have to build a space where Black men can really be vulnerable and talk about policies that ultimately are going to change their life, but also their family's life.
Very well. Feel free to jump in, gentlemen.
I'll go next as the Canadian. I'll do it really quickly. So like I was telling you, Corey, like we are just as wrapped up in your politics as you guys are. And like what the representative said, I feel there's so much misinformation put out there. We all know which party is putting it out. I was hearing something the other day that I think it's like 85% of Black men are supporting Kamala Harris. So just don't believe all the hype. And second of all, like we saw Barack Obama just get in trouble for it the other day. Black men are not a monolith, just like Black people are not. You cannot assume that because Kamala Harris is a woman of color or a Black woman, Indian, however you want to classify her. You can't just assume because you're Black that we're going to support you because you're Black. So that's like the representative said also that you don't see white men doing that to other white men, right? So I just think that it is wrong to assume that. I don't think necessarily that's what Barack Obama meant by that, but I think he walked it back a little bit. But two things: Black men do support Kamala Harris, and two, let's not just assume because you are Black. Like when I had my stores, a lot of Black designers would come in and be like, "Oh, you're a Black owner. I want you to put my Black product in your store." I'm like, it's not going to work that way. Like you got to make sure that your product that you want me to sell is up to level of the other brands. I would love to support another Black man or woman 100%, but I'm not going to take you just because you are Black. You need to be of a certain standard. So we have to work for the Black vote.
I'll chime in next if it's cool. I think one of the biggest problems we have as Black men, Black people, period, is that when you see somebody on TV that does something, the white person gets blamed. when you see a black man or a black woman does something, the whole black race gets blamed, and those aspersions are cast upon us like we're all like that. On the flip side, too, the only thing that we don't control. We're not the gatekeepers of the media and what's put out there, so we're not able to control what they see. So you don't see the positivity and all the great things that we do within our communities all the time. You never get to see that. They only want to focus on the thing, and that's been historically what this has been. To me, I think this is one of the biggest jokes of an election that we've ever had, although it be one of the most important. It reminds me of like when we were in high school and they had slam books, and you talked about people. That's all. It seems like that's all they're doing, and it's just it's making to me it's making a mockery out of the justice, out of the whole election process. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are, really frustrated with the voting for Kamala. And I don't see how any black man that is of the voting age, or I'm 54, that was raised by a single strong woman that went to work every day and led the household and made sure we ate, and the fathers weren't about a damn. I don't see how any black man could turn away any black woman, especially when your mama was one that held that. Even if it was a man in the house, if there was not a black woman there in the household, that house would have fell apart. Just bottom line. So I've never understand why men shy away from strong, black, powerful, money making, go getting, established, able to run the race, not behind you, but next to you. So I just don't believe that. It's too much. It's like, it just sounds like they just, well, he did this and it's just too much of that. And it turns, I voted already, but I just think that this is one of the biggest. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I'm sorry for being late too, by the way. I don't know what's going on. I got like 80 computers here, and my phone didn't work, and that's all we do our interviews on StreamYard all the time. No, I don't know, so I apologize for my tardiness. That's another all black people are late. CP ties. Sorry.
No worries. Tell us who you are. We did self-introduction, so.
My name is Dave Tolliver. I'm the founder of the group Men at Large. Right now, I'm presently touring with a group called the Levert Experience. It's myself, Joe Little from the Rude Boys, and Mark Gordon, the founding and last living member of the group Levert. And we're presently touring everywhere. And I'm also starting a foundation called Eat Your Heart Out. I just recently lost about 140 pounds, and it's going to educate kids on childhood obesity and teenage mental health. My daughter goes to the school. I don't know if you read where I guess it was a transgender young lady that jumped off a building at the library at Middle Tennessee State University. I don't want to say crazy because that's not really a cool word in this moment, and then today she just sent me another one from 2 other colleges. 3 other kids did it, and I don't know if they were successful. And then another one at another school did it too. So, man, these kids, man, they need I don't know what they putting in the food, what they dropping off those planes, but it's affecting these kids, and it really hurts my heart to see it. Like, it really hurts my heart. I don't care what your pronouns are. I just feel like when you get to a point where you feel like you want to take your own life, man, somebody had to know, somebody had to see. We're not paying enough attention. So I don't care who it is.
Thank you for sharing that. And death by suicide is a very significant issue in the community, and it's important that we not, again, it's not just slam book material that's going on with this election. There is some very dangerous rhetoric, and a lot of it is including members of the LGBTQ community, transgender individuals specifically being banned from different activities. And that's from the legislative piece, Representative Gerald's in states like Tennessee. So I want to give Devontae the opportunity to also share his points on this part of the conversation. But thank you very much for joining us, Dave. We appreciate you. You have some great things going on. Dave and I go back way back when he and Jason of Men at Large were first on the Arsenio Hall show.
I love that woman.
So good stuff. It's so good to have you on. Devontae, please feel free to share your thoughts.
So I would say for me, when it comes to politics, to be completely transparent, like I've been very indifferent about it. because I just feel like the media, just how they portray just everything is just so misleading. And I feel as though that can truly impact your mental health, as we're saying. So it's like, I'm really just like I'll worry about what's in front of me. I'll control what I can control. I'll do my part in the community, but I'm not going to let that get to me on a soul level. Because, like, yes, I can play my part in this world, but it's like I also don't want to feel like they have so much control over what I do day to day. Like, regardless of what they say and do, that's not going to change who I am at the root and at the heart. You know what I mean? Like, my mission statement for my life is going to stay the same regardless of who's in house. So it's like I've just been very like indifferent in the sense of like, obviously I'm gonna make sure I vote, but it's just like I try not to indulge in that too much because I just know like, it's very opinionated. And like how Dave said too, it's just like just how they portray things and mislead us on media is just not, the best.
So how do you help youth to see that? I'm now thinking about. I started off at the beginning of the introduction, just all the years it seems, in talking to my sons who are now grown men, but talking to them about race relations and their own safety, especially when they started driving and maybe having that talk. A lot of people, Black families, know about the talk and what that entails, but preparing your child to go out and drive and what to do if and when they encounter police, it's a safety strategy for a lot of people who are not able to protect their children once they walk out the door each day. So you have youth who are coming into your doors daily, and they may be bombarded with these messages, already having dealt with bullies at school,
Right.
and maybe hearing all of these things on TV, or everybody has a phone in the tip of their fingers, having these different reels and memes and things of that nature, just hitting them even more. And it may not be so easy to just understand that this is misinformation, but you are hearing grown people
Right.
say the things that the kids at school are saying or calling you, such as the N word or something equivalent, that is just very dangerous, based on stereotypes and all of the other strategies and tactics that are being presented into our media space in order to divide people.
Right. No, I definitely agree. And I would say just like social media as a whole, if you don't have the guidance, the mentoring, like you can get persuaded into thinking that everything that you see is true. So I think a part of it is like creating that space where they feel comfortable enough to share with us, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Like, can you validate this? And I would say every so often they'll bring up different topics that, I'll have like a transparent and honest conversation. I'll give them my opinion. And it's like, that's important because it's like in anyhow that they just come to our space just for the physical and they don't share those type of things, they're going to just believe what they see. So I think it's all, contingent upon like their comfort level of like what they express to us, because believe it or not, some of them look at us as like father figures because they don't have any other representation of successful Black and brown men. So I think it just comes down to like comfortability.
I think one of the most important things that I think this has been maybe passed down from generations is not really meeting the youth where they are. Like a lot of times we force what we want them to believe and not hear them at the same time. And one of the biggest problems is our I don't want to say our strength, but our power, but our authority, our what's the word? The when I was a kid, it was either you do what I said or I'm pow pow pow.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even work now. You can take their phone, you can take their games, whatever. They don't care.
Right.
And the one thing that I learned, especially as my kids started getting older, is, and it was hard for me because my father figures and people that were around me were always like, "This is how you should do it. Do it like this, man." My uncle David. That's not the way you do it like this. And the only thing I knew was to believe that. But now there's so many things that are catching their eye, catching their mind, catching their time. We have to meet them where they are, and we, as parents, grandparents, whatever, we need to be up on the times. We need to know what's going on. Like you said, you create that space for your kid. I do something with my daughter, especially because I say you need to be a litigator. I want her to meet you, Corey, because she needs to be like a litigator. She's going to school for music, but she's so passionate and strong and always wants her opinion to be heard and forced. So I created this thing called the black box talk. So whatever, like, in the black box on the plane is everything. I say, well, when we in this black box, you can say wherever you want. You won't get judged. You won't get whatever. And you say what you want. And a lot of times it, kind of makes them, feel closer to you and feel more comfortable talking to you. You know what I mean? And so, we just got to, like, I've heard this from therapists and different people too. We have to meet them where they are. But, we have to educate ourselves on them and not just think, oh, that's garbage, that's trash. Right. We have to study everything. It's a harder day to raise and to be connected with these kids, but we have to let them find their own truth. They will come back though.
Right. That's powerful.
It's like I said earlier, it's the same thing I'm going to say again, is that you have to mix it in. It can't just be one straight conversation about mental health. You're never going to get anybody at that age, a teen, preteen, or even somebody who's a young adult to tune in. Like the rep was talking about yesterday, the Black men's panel that was on BET. I would love for BET to tell us the ratings, how many people tuned in versus the BET Hip Hop Awards. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be far less. But if they had that same conversation, which I agree with you, was a masterclass, but have T.I. performing, have something else going on and mix it together, have Glorilla there, have Sexy Red, and then you have that conversation. You have people tuning in, and then you'll have their attention. And you have to find a way to make mental health and all of these conversations cool. You're never going to get to them talking about it from an older person's standpoint. It's just not going to happen.
You're right.
Well, I just want to throw in the name of Megan Thee Stallion, who has Hotties Need Therapy too. And I think that people are finding ways because they're dealing with it themselves. I know earlier, many of you mentioned about being relatable. And a part of being relatable is sharing our own stories and journeys. Some adults want to be adults and act like they never had the issues and things from their childhood, or, dabbling into drinking or whatever they did as a youth. But it's important to be relatable. And I believe that Megan Thee Stallion is doing a great job and has a whole platform now in terms of mental health. And I just see her exemplifying what you can be, to the world, but also having the time for yourself and making sure that you are okay as well.
Hey, Corey, go ahead. If I can just jump in, I think there's 2 points I'll make real quick. And the first sounds radical, but it's true. Unhealed black men can't heal black boys. That's just, if you haven't dealt with your own trauma, how do you expect to assess, understand, and give guidance to a boy who's dealing with the same things you're dealing with?
Man.
And so I feel like part of this conversation is like, you have to show up in your healed version and show them what it means to heal, right? You have to be okay being vulnerable with these babies, right? To say, look, you know what? I went through the same thing you went through and I had to go get help, right? And I understand that there's an access to care issue, right? Across this country, there's disparities in terms of finding a black therapist, or maybe a spiritual therapist, or maybe someone who's relatable to your experience growing up. I get that. But I feel like we can't have honest conversations with our black boys who are going through shit that we went through if we don't take the time for ourselves to invest in ourselves. That's the first thing. The second thing, real quick, is one of the things that I do, and to Dave's point, I think beautifully stated, authenticity, opening up the door, allowing young people to feel heard and seen, and open them up to be vulnerable in a safe space is incredibly powerful. It is, I feel like, honestly, that's better than a concert, right? Like, because if I feel safe with you and I know that me telling you how I'm feeling is going to result in some maybe change, maybe you can connect me with a program or a service. Maybe I'm dealing with the fact that I have abandonment because my dad wasn't there, right? Maybe, like, if I can feel as a child that I have somebody who I can depend on and count on and help me navigate these complexities in my life from a healed place, There's no amount of money, commercials, events, music, rappers that will take that will overvalue that experience with that child. And so I just think that we have to heal as Black men, as we're also trying to talk about healing to Black boys.
Yeah, I went through that. I did, and you're exactly right. You can't, if you're walking around holding things. Like I grew up in a domestically abusive home. My father was a menace, and what I suggest is that you have to find out the truth. How I was able to forgive him, because like you said, they say forgiveness ain't for him, it's for you. How I was able to forgive him, I thought he was a repeat offender. His dad was even worse than him, and all he did was do what he knew. And I never could understand it because he exalted his fathers on such a high plateau, all of them. And all of them used to just, their mom, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, they all used to take beatings for nothing. And he passed it down to my, but I wasn't able to forgive him until I was 37. Because I sat down with one of my family members, one of the historians of the family, and they ran down the whole truth about everything. And a lot of times we don't have that. We just walk around so mad, man, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I don't live, you know, and you carry that and you carry it and carry it, and you're right. Hurt people, heal people, help people.
All right. Good stuff.
Corey, I'm going to add an example just to give you guys even more proof how effective it is. In my book, in the preface, the first 2 pages, I say that I'm dyslexic. I say, like, Dave can't come from an abusive household. I say I've been arrested 6 times and have a gun charge. You have no idea. Every time I go to a school and I talk to kids, there's at least 2 or 3 kids that come and say, you know what? I never wanted to read. I never opened a book. I read the first 2 pages and I'm automatically identified with you. And it made me want to read the rest of the book. So you come out right away, let them know, not glorifying it, being like, yo, just, you know, it's just to let them know, like, hey, here's a businessman that's coming in that opened up a national brand. No, this is not just another guy. This is somebody just like you. West Indian background, abusive household, et cetera, et cetera. We all have so many common discrepancies, experiences, you know, but not just experiences, but experiences that hold us back. Coming from an abusive household is not, you know, the start. We're coming from behind the starting line, you know. So a lot of these Black and brown kids, as soon as they can identify with that and see somebody that is successful, that has started behind the start line, it totally changes the conversation, and they automatically open up and gravitate towards you. So it really does help.
Yes, adverse childhood experiences is something that a lot of children have and may not know it right now. And unfortunately, school districts seem to not properly provide resources for that child. So, for example, a child that's continuing to act up may have had a situation at home before even coming to school, or fallen asleep in class because they've been up all night with their sick younger sibling because the parent is out of the home working and the responsibility is on that child. So there are a lot of different adverse experiences that children have, and it impacts them once they grow up. So to Representative's point, you know, if there's no time taken to heal, we first need to know and accept, I guess, like with Alcoholics Anonymous, and making that first step of acknowledging the situation, then you can take a step forward and actually healing. So I truly appreciate the comments that you all have made regarding that. And I know we're getting close to time, but I really want to share this quote. Trent, you may recognize this name, but Dr. Rita Walker is a psychologist and also an alum with the iHeartRadio and Charlemagne the God and Dr. Alfie's Mental WELLth Expo in New York. And she has a second book out now, but her first one is called The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. And her quote is this: "You need so much more than mental health or well-being in this era of discrimination, invisibility, and psychological warfare. You need an impermeable web of protection for your mind." I would like you to just take a moment to think about that and then share your thoughts if you're willing and wanting to. You need a bit of protection for your mind.
I 100% agree with that. I do think it comes across, not disagreeing with her, love her, but it does come across as heavy. And what I want to tell people out there is that yes, you need to protect your mind, an impenetrable web around your mind, but it's not that hard to do it. And I feel like when I speak, especially with the younger generation, it's like, I don't think I can ever get there. Or I think it's too much, you know. And I just want to let you guys know that, you know, therapy or mental health sounds scary. And I was afraid of it when I first went in, when I first got diagnosed with being bipolar. The first thing I was like, what are you talking about? And I actually didn't go back to therapy after 6 months. And then when I realized that I was having a manic episode because he told me what he told me, I was like, okay, I want to go back. So yes, you do need it, but more importantly, it's not that hard to get there. It's like anything. It's like going to the gym. I tell people all the time, a mental health therapist is the same thing like getting a trainer for a gym. You walk into the gym and say, hey, I want to, you know, gain, you know, a chest and thighs and abs, and a therapist can help you get there. There's steps you're gonna have to work to build up this impenetrable web in your mind. But with good therapy and hard work, you can get there. So I don't want that to scare anybody away.
I appreciate you making the comment, Trent, because as I shared, you know, and as you said, you're in Canada, right? Mm-hmm. And some people, their form of creating protection for their mind is to relocate, mm-hmm. thinking about the possibilities of after this election. Some people have already prepared to have a plan to relocate. Yep. Canada is one of those countries that, you know, being connected to, we're on the same continent, so that may be an easy relocation option, or Portugal. And I've heard of different places and seen Instagram posts, for example, that lists the best countries that for Black people to consider relocating to. So that seems kind of hard and maybe in some mindsets extreme, but it's about protecting your mental health. So is there anything that's too hard or too out of reach when you are trying to make sure that you are going to feel safe and protected, and that you have a great opportunity for your physical and mental health to be prioritized if you relocate, or some other type of way of addressing stressful situations in your life or in your community, and in this case, nationally for a lot of people?
Yeah. And a lot of people in our community, let's just be honest, we deal with our stress through smoking weed or drinking. That's what I did. And I learned through therapy, I was just self-medicating myself, right? So look, I'll let everybody else speak and do their opinion on it, but we have to stop running away, trying to relocate, self-medicate ourselves. Just find a place, find somebody to speak to, and think about it like going to the gym. Like Dave just said, he lost 140 pounds. You got some knowledge somewhere to help you lose that weight, however it is that you did it, whether through diet or exercise. Your mind is a muscle. It's the exact same way as approaching losing weight or training, getting better at basketball or football, whatever sports. And it's just not that hard to do if you approach it from that standpoint.
Yes.
The biggest obstacle is nobody can be delivered from anything until they're ready to do it, until they want to do it, whether it's alcoholism, drugs, overeating, sex addiction, weight loss, whatever it may be. And you're right, it is easy to do it. And then sometimes for others, it's easier said than done. People are so insecure about what other people are going to think about them. And I just think especially the younger guys, just people, period. They get so insecure about everything they hear, or especially, you know, from our culture. I remember growing up, my grandmother was so worried because she was such this Christian lady, and she was so worried about what everybody was going to think and say and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, you have to love yourself more than these stereotypes. You have to love yourself more than people talking about you. You just got to take it. You have to take it. You have to love you. I mean, would you rather feel miserable all the time, or would you rather be healed and be able to say, okay, yeah, I feel way better. Y'all can go ahead and talk y'all talk. I'm good over here. They talk about you because they ain't man or woman enough to go do what they need to do to fix themselves. Period.
Great comment.
I think, Dave, you hit it nail on the head. You know, I always use this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he said, to serve, you only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. You have to love yourself enough to heal. And I think part of the conversation that we're having about what does healing even look like, right? I think we need to really start there, because healing looks different depending upon who you talk to, right?
Come on, man.
And it's also about being really intentional about celebrating every single step in the journey. Oftentimes we're quick to assess ourselves by the end goal. Well, I didn't get to the end goal, and so because I didn't get to the end goal, I failed. You can't think about your healing journey like that. It has to be every single step. I worked in behavioral health since I was 22 years old until I was elected into office. And I can't tell you the number of people who recovered from addiction and recovered from real shit that they had to navigate, go from the bottom to the top. And one of the things, the silver lining across every single experience that I've had to bear witness to, is that somebody celebrated them along the way. And oftentimes we as a community don't do that enough, right? We are assessing ourselves by the end product. And to be quite frank with you, that is not how you build good human beings. That's how you build product. And I'm not a product, right? I am a person with lived experiences, with failures, with weaknesses, with strengths. And you have to see my humanity in every single facet. And until you do that across the board for every person we connect with, we're never going to get to a place of healing that's going to be genuine and authentic and long-term.
Thank you for that.
And I'll just add to that too, is like, I'm a huge advocate. You have to give yourself grace. So everything that you've gone through up to this point, like, understand that molded you into who you are today. And it's like, as we're saying, like, there's resources around you. And like, once you have access to that resource, now that you know better, it's empowering to do better. And it's like, I'm a firm believer on just like habits. So it's just like, if you see that you're not going on the right path, take a look at your habits. Like, your habits will literally provide that step-by-step tool and insight of like, where is this going to lead me? And I'm a firm believer in my faith as well. Is like, the higher up, like, he will continue to put you through tests until you pass that test in some way, shape, or form. So it's just like, you have to be obedient to see like, what is this in front of me? Am I going to look at this as like an obligation, or is this an opportunity for me to grow? And it's all in your perspective. So it's like, I truly believe that when you slow down, you can go fast, but many people are just going nowhere fast. They just go on to the next. But as we're all saying right now, is like, you have to slow down, do the internal work. As Trent said, it's not that hard, but you have to look yourself in the mirror and like really identify, like, how bad do I want this change? And as Dave said, nobody can want that for you. You cannot change someone if they're not ready to make that change. And it starts with you looking yourself in the mirror and being ready to make that change.
That is great. You all have given some great words of advice, healing guidance, and it is greatly appreciated. I want to take this opportunity to help people who don't know the first step in trying to figure out anything about healing or knowing what mental health is all about. As Trent said, like a muscle in our body, it's our brains, how our brain operates, how we think and feel. So know that your mental health was just a part of your overall health, your mental and physical health. And with that, I would love for everyone to know, and you are able to download my go-to mental health guide. It is full of information, organizations, podcasts, websites, movies, books, documentaries that can just help you take the first step to understanding what mental health is, and even severe mental illness. If you're experiencing hallucinations or delusions, or have someone in your family that's doing so. So you can go to CoreyEmpowers.com and download your mental wealth guide today. And gentlemen, a lightning round, tell people how they can contact you. So you gave them some great information, and I'm sure people want to contact you otherwise. So please go ahead and start. Go ahead, Devontae.
I'll start off with saying, so Instagram, that is our largest platform. So I would say @Diligence Training. We provide a bunch of tools and resources when it comes to like empowering yourself holistically.
All right. Trent?
Like I said earlier, but for those who missed it, my podcast and my YouTube is not about mental health. It's entertainment and viral news. So don't follow me if you're thinking that you're going to get mental health, because I'm just talking about hip hop and music and all that stuff. But if you do want to, you can follow me @Trent Out Loud on YouTube or any social platform. And thank you so much for having me, Corey.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Dave?
It's Dave Tolliver on Facebook, TOLLIVER, and Dave Men at Large on Instagram and all the other ones, X, Threads, everything, at TikTok, at Dave Men at Large, at Dave Men at Large. And you can find out everything I'm doing there. Thank you for having me. Remember, it also, one thing too, healing is a way of life. It's a way of life. It's like drugs, sex, whatever. You can't keep going back to those places that bring you back in there. You can't go back to depressive places. You got to cut people off. We got to move on. I wanted to say that earlier. Go ahead. And starting behind the finish line, that's deep. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, listen, all great points this evening. I truly do appreciate being on with you, Corey, and these brilliant brothers. I want to leave before I say my piece too. I want folks to look up mental health first aid. It is a national certification that anyone can get. Literally, you can type it in, mental health first aid, type in your zip code. They have instructors that would train you. It's an 8-hour course, much like CPR. You learn how to assess for risk of suicide or harm, how to how to listen non-judgmentally, how to help give resources and advice, but really be a steward of support for families who are going through mental health challenges. Mental health first aid is an incredible tool that can save lives. I've seen it happen in real time. But you can follow me on all my social media. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at I am Don Tavius. I am Don Tavius. And I'm excited to hopefully bring some of you to the State House one day in Ohio, because this is how we build an Ohio that we all deserve. Thank you, Corey, for having me.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. Thank you all who have joined us this evening. Mental Wealth Wednesday, brought to you by Corey Empowers. You can listen to the recordings on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for joining us.
Peace. Thank you.